So I'm the last speaker today. We're talking about a series that's over. So I thought I should talk a little bit about the past and also something about the future. I've been working for the Regional Australia Institute for the past 4 years. We set up our organisation to be a national body, independent of government, advocating for regions and for regional development. One of the first things we did in starting off the organisation was come to WA. I think we established the company in October and we were here in January. And Tim Shackleton, who you all know is on our board and has made sure that WA has been a big part of our story. The reason we came here so quickly when we set up the Institute was for two reasons. The economic story of WA couldn't be ignored. The change that was driving the whole country was happening here. But also the policy initiatives that were being taken in response to that were the biggest initiatives in the country, the most ambitious initiatives in the country. And we wanted to understand more about the experience of regions in WA. And I've been really grateful over the last 4 years to have the opportunity to visit nearly every region and speak directly to many people in this room and leaders of each region about the experience. I think we've been successful in advocating some of the great things that are happening in WA, and a couple of great examples coming up. We'll be talking nationally about the success of Dalwallinu, one of the great wheatbelt communities. We know wheatbelt communities here and on the eastern states are struggling for population. 15% population growth, proactive local migration strategy that's made that occur. One of the standout examples of change in some of those communities, and together with a small place called Nil in Victoria, which has had a similar experience, really shows the way for how lots of communities, if they choose to, can create significant change. We're also very lucky in a project we're doing with the federal government on social infrastructure to have Greg from Denmark come and talk to us about the Riverside Club in Denmark, which I'm sure Minister Redmond knows well. Such a great example of local initiative, a third support from local government, investment from elsewhere, bringing together older and younger people in a community to build what is going to be, and shortly to open, I believe, an enormous asset for Denmark, help with its tourism industry development, bind together people in the community, reinforce the reasons that people who live in Perth now and might want to get out of that ridiculously expensive small real estate and get into something better in the regions might feel that socially it's a place they can live and they can succeed in. We've also told the story of Karratha, and particularly about the long-term future for Karratha and the misunderstanding of the situation in Karratha, the reason for those investments and what the future looks like. And we've really tried to do our best to reflect what we hear from people, what we heard on the way up and what we're hearing now in the consolidation phase. So it's been, I just wanted to give that personal reflection and from the organisation's perspective, it's been incredibly informative to be part of WA's regional development story. I hope our work over the last few years and our engagement has really contributed something to what I think we should reflect on as being a time of significant success. One of the things about these periods when growth comes off, when the investment's pouring in, when the money's coming, when the contracts are falling on your face and you're just trying to keep up, it's easy to feel successful. But are you really? Are you really successful when it's all coming your way? I don't think you are. The real success I think we'll see for regional WA is in the next 10 years, because we've substantially changed what the place is. We did a piece of work with the Department of Regional Development called Cities Beyond Perth. It's on our website, it's on the department's website, looking at the growth and development of regional centres in WA, the largest places from Carnarvon through to Mandurah. This is one of the hidden stories, I think, of WA's recent regional development story. The population growth you've experienced because of that boom has transformed what's possible for WA's regions. You've got genuine growing regional cities emerging. You've got much more diversity. You've got much more capability to have the kinds of things happening economically in regional WA that we've had an opportunity to have in the eastern states for a long time. A really significant opportunity. But if we think about the future, it's not going to be as easy as the last few years. the growth isn't just going to come. We should have reasonable expectations of what level of growth we can achieve. The other thing that is really changing now is, more concrete will not assure the future of regional WA. There's always going to be need for infrastructure investment to improve the availability of services, to make sure that the economy can work well. But if we just pour more money into infrastructure investment, a case you could really make, I think, during the boom period, that we had to catch up, we had to take the barriers out as quickly as possible, we had to bring the places in regional WA up to a regional standard, use that opportunity. But more concrete now won't assure the future. You can keep pouring infrastructure investment into regional areas and not get very far, because if those investments aren't the best ones we can make. So nationally, we're starting to have a discussion about innovation policy. We're starting to have a discussion about health and education. We're starting to have a discussion about a whole range of issues. These issues are very, very real for regional WA and regional areas as well. Because if we're in a lower growth environment where tourism and agriculture and other parts of the economy are starting to pick up, but for where the growth will not come so easily, where, if the iron ore industry is going to expand, it's going to happen in WA. The world doesn't have an option. We've got plenty of options on tourism, plenty of options on agriculture around the world. So if we're going to secure those benefits, if we're going to create jobs, we need to build the capability in our people. We need to build the capability of our businesses and entrepreneurs to be successful. I talked before about the opportunity from regional centres, and I know that the government and the regional department's working hard on the regional centres development plan, which I think is a really smart investment, and with what's happening in Canberra on both sides of politics with regional cities, city deals, really should set regional WA up to step up and put some compelling proposals on the table. So regional centres in WA are the biggest asset and potentially one of the biggest opportunities we've got in the next 5 to 10 years. But digital disruption means we also don't need them so much anymore. So if you live in, perhaps like Sue Middleton, you live in regional WA, you can order the things you need for your business over the internet. You can increasingly tap in through Tim's services to service providers in Perth or on the eastern states or internationally, whoever suits your needs best. So the reasons for you to engage with your locals, your reliance on that key centre is just going to get lower and lower. So there's reasons why these places might not do well. The other side of things is for people now living in Perth. What we've done in regional WA is changed, and there's a term I think someone in the room uses, desirability. We've really transformed the desirability of those places as places to live. Before they were semi-industrial towns in the middle of effectively nowhere. Of course not nowhere, but towns a long, long way from anywhere that didn't really present well. The kind of place that a lot of people in this room spend a couple of years, as you walk through your career, and then you come back to Perth where you thought you'd spend most of your life. So what we need to do now is we've changed the desirability. We need to deliver the local economic climate, the businesses, the entrepreneurs in those local areas who can draw people to them, who can draw people from WA, from overseas, from wherever, to come and be part of building great communities in beautiful parts of the world. So we don't need... Our regional centres in WA are our biggest opportunity, but there's also a big risk that if we don't get those policy settings right. Government can't assure these outcomes. The only thing that government can do is raise the level of activity. So the point of innovation policy, for example, is not to identify that Stephen Caratha's got the next tech business that's going to become Google and shower him with riches at the perfect point in time to make that happen. The point of government innovation policy, the point of government capability policy, is just to create as many Steves as possible. Because if we're just working with the laws of probability, the more people engaging with these types of issues, the more likely we have a success. The more people in regional WA having a crack, being supported, the barriers pulled down, having a crack, the more likely we are to find those companies, those Indigenous companies, other companies that create the hundreds of jobs that actually drive our regional economies. So the ones who can step out on the global stage and capture investment. So it's really important. Keep the infrastructure investment right. Embed the quality and the expectation that we should have wonderful places to live, wonderful communities in regional WA. But let's drive the next phase, I think, in a different way. And to be honest, let's make sure that the Royalties for Regions Fund is an asset for the long term. You know, if we've got $1 billion in the bank at the moment for the coming year, but we've only got $200 million of great investments, can we roll it over? Can we really build that capability for the long term? Not waste the resource, not waste the asset that's created. Something that's absolutely unique in Australia. There's no similar fund. Possibly the Norwegians and their resources fund is the only sort of analogous thing that I'm aware of. So how do we secure that asset, not try and continue the type of investment that's been absolutely necessary in the past but isn't necessarily so important in the future? Change our focus to building innovation and private sector success. Change our focus to lifting the capability of people, to churning out kids in regional centres in WA who are primed and ready for success, whatever they choose to do, who have a good education, who have the capability, the opportunity to do it. Because if we can do those two things, I think there's no reason that we can't be very, very successful in the next 10 years. And we can't actually look back on this 10 years coming, as opposed to the great boom time in WA, which is always transformational, always happen. But look back on these 10 years where we consolidated, we diversified, we grew regional WA. We really took that opportunity of growing regional centres that bind in the kinds of opportunities we see in capital cities. And there's real benefits for the state and nationally if we do that. We released a report recently looking at development of regional cities around Australia. And 4.5 million people live in regional cities, at least. We've got millions of people who live in small cities around Australia. My team estimated that for every 100,000 people who choose to live in those places rather than the big city, not because we made them, just because they want to, 50 billion goes into the national economy over 30 years. Where does that money come from? Congestion costs, so less of a traffic jam out the front here, and also interest payments. So less money for the banks, more money for the consumer economy. Big benefits if we get this right. The case for regional development, and I think it was really well enunciated earlier. The case is equity, sure. We're one of the richest countries in the world. Every person in Australia should expect some kind of telecommunications connection, access to service, a decent place to live. Absolutely. But connection to opportunity, the ability to take those opportunities, the ability to create something special in all of the wonderful places around WA. So my view of the future is it's going to be a hell of a lot harder. And if you're looking for the easy win, well, I don't know where you go actually, maybe to China, not even to China these days. I don't think there's many going to be around in the next 10 years. But what we've done, from my perspective as an outsider in WA, is set the place up in a really exciting way. There's assets there to be built upon. There's great initiatives that we see across WA when we get the chance to go and talk to different leaders around the country. I'm really excited about the next 10 years, both nationally and for the regions. I think there's a great opportunity. We just can't keep doing things the same way. We need to be prepared to change, to develop our approach. And I think it right now is about that inflection point. If we get that right, I think we'll be really successful. Thanks to the opportunity from CEDA to speak at a number of these. Really enjoyed spending time in Carnarvon. We've been advocating for Carnarvon as one place that, the opportunities are swinging its way, could do really well. Enjoyed talking in the Wheat Belt and enjoyed talking in Kalgoorlie as well. It's a great series. It's great to see the energy come together with some sophistication in a forum like this. And the Regional Australia Institute really looks forward to being a part of the next 10 years journey for regional WA. So thank you.